Hello, welcome back to Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley on YouTube. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley, and this video is another one on the series of Shropshire churches. This is a very exciting little church. This is Langley Chapel. It's a Puritan place of worship. It was a private chapel for Langley Hall nearby. Langley Hall has mostly disappeared now. Just the gatehouse and a few odd scraps survive. But it was a grand house once. And the family in the late 16th century embraced Puritanism, and they refitted the local chapel, which had been built perhaps a generation earlier by their ancestors, as a Puritan place of worship. So let's have a look around and we'll see what a 17th century Puritan country chapel would look like. Not a meeting house, you understand, a Puritan chapel in the Church of England. The Puritans are not separatists. They are a movement within the C of E that is trying to reform the Church of England in a more Protestant direction, that says that the Reformation under Edward was a movement that was stopped by Elizabeth, and what we need is to reform that work and to carry on and to give the Church of England a Protestant appearance. So let's have a look around this unique, really, little place of worship. Langley Chapel is, as we've said, a Puritan place of worship, but also it is a place of worship within the Church of England and within the settled hierarchy of the area. So you have the squire's pew, you can see that facing us here opposite the pulpit. You have box pews and you have simple benches for the common folk. So this is still an Anglican place of worship. It's not, you can see incidentally this is an earlier building. It's not a building that was built like this. You can see because of that beam there. That is a rood beam that had the rood on it before the Reformation. And because this is a private chapel, this is a chapel that belongs to the local big house, it doesn't have a font. It doesn't have many of the things that a church would have, but it does have a situation where the local big house owner can basically do what he likes. And so what he has done is he has set up this, and look at here, here's the communion table. Do you notice something about it? That it has these seats around it on three sides, and here the communicants would sit. So we are sitting around a table. You'll notice medieval floor tiles. This is a late medieval chapel that then is taken over and made into this Puritan place of worship. It's a table, not an altar. We can go all the way around it, and the communicants would sit around it, because the communicants are the Lord's household seated round his table. That is the family pew. It's relatively small, but you've also got these box pews, and you have the pulpit. Pulpits become an essential part of Anglican worship in the 17th century. There would originally have been a step up, but there isn't anymore. At some point, what was the family pew, has been adapted into a second pulpit stroke reading desk, because this remained in use for worship until the very beginning of the 20th century, when it became redundant, and it's now owned by English Heritage and managed by them. You will see up here you have the Tudor rose and the fleur-de-lis of France, and this is moulding, plaster moulding. There's a head there and another head on the other side, both fairly crude. And here is, I say, this adapted family pew that's now the second pulpit stroke reading desk. You can look out there at the countryside beyond. It's a very simple building. It's a simple building, first of all, because it is, see, this then is the family pew. That is a very big pew. The other box pews are smaller, because you've only got a small number of important people, farmers in the parish. And at the back there, that was the singers' pew. That's where the singers would have stood to lead worship. And up there is the bell cot. There's no bell anymore. There used to be one, but the bell has long since disappeared. The roof is very simple, and it's all very much of a piece. A little chapel reflecting a period in English history that's very important. Now, one generation you'd have gone in and you'd have seen painted walls, you'd have had an altar with candlesticks, you'd have had a few benches for people to sit in, and that would have been it. And then a generation later you have the building as it is now, set up for reformed worship. You'll notice there is no font. That's because this is a chapel for the big house, and baptisms would have been held at Acton Burnell Church nearby. You can see how simple the benches are, because again, these are for the common folk. You don't have to make anything terribly complicated, or that's the approach that was taken. And you'll often see these 17th century benches, single planks, roughly hewn, and it's quite effective. That is not a font, but that is something else by the door. That appears to be something intended to put a post in. And that is Langley Chapel. It's a very simple building, but it's a building that speaks of a sea change in religion in England. The Church of England goes from being a part of the medieval Western Catholic Church and becomes a Protestant Reformed church. Well, let's go and have a look at the outside of this building, which very much still reflects its medieval, very, very late medieval origins. So here we have Langley Chapel on the outside. This is the south side. South side, of course, is the main entrance side, and that is where the door is, where there's a single window, little bell cot. The roof is made of stone slabs, a common roofing material in this part of the world. And it sits at the moment in the middle of a field. Those trees, beyond those trees, is what's left of Langley Hall, the big house that basically the chapel was built to serve. It would have been Langley Hall, the servants at the big house, the people who worked for them, and a number of local farmers. And this is built on the cusp of the Reformation. It's still a medieval building, and when it's built as a Catholic chapel, part of the Western Catholic tradition. But then it becomes what it is today, this Puritan place of worship. And here we have the north side, the plainer side, the side that's not a door. You'll notice no door because no baptisms, so no need for a north door. Just needs the two doors on the south side. Just a single window of a 17th century type, immensely plain, lovely setting, middle of nowhere, effectively. There are houses around, but it feels incredibly isolated. It feels more isolated than it is, in fact. And as I say, it went out of use. It's now owned by English Heritage. It's now simply open for visitors, for tourists. But it's a memorial to a period that is so often forgotten in terms of church architecture, and to those Puritans who were part of the Church of England. Again, we've got the sign in the wrong direction here, but you can see there the east window with its simple Y tracery. Why Y tracery? Well, why not? So the point is, of course, the east window is the big window. It's more important, and so having Y tracery emphasises that. So here we are, there we go, Langley Chapel. Puritan simplicity within the simplest of medieval chapels. Simplicity itself. We can say nothing about the people who were here, simply that they were common folk and presided over by a lord of the manor who sought to reform the church and his parish and his area according to the word of God. A simple building, a memorial to a vanished age, a vanished world. No longer active as a place of worship, but a building that still seems to preach from every stone that the world is the Lord's, the earth is the Lord's, and all that is in it. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you. I hope you enjoy these videos and keep watching. See more of these interesting English and Welsh churches. Thank you.